I always do that. March 26th, 2025. Um, I'd like to call this meeting to order and turn it over to Letty.
Sure. Good afternoon, members of the board, actually of the COC meeting, and anyone joining us on Zoom. I will give you a little bit of instructions. If you're joining us by Zoom, if you'd like to speak during public comment, use the raise option on Zoom, and speakers are asked to limit their comments to 2 minutes. And we'll start in person here in the room first, and then we'll go live on Zoom after that. With that, I will take roll call. We'll call Member Haggerty.
Present.
Member Johnson is not present. A member Labor. Larabure. I apologize. New members, new language here for me. Member McCubbin. Member Mann. Member Nachor.
Here.
Member Reyes Diaz. Vice Chair Ingdahl.
Here.
Chair Sheehan Meyer.
Present.
Great, thank you. With that, we'll go to slide number 2, which is the new introductions of the COC members. Next slide, please. Oh, we're having a little bit technical here with the new setup. There we go. Good afternoon. We have 4 new members on our COC with us today, and we have 1 reappointee. And I'd like to introduce our first member, which is Richard Gregory Johnson, which he is not present at the time. He did say he'll be coming in. Matthew Labure, who's present. Danny Sheehan, who's reappointed, and Emma Mann here. Jefferson Reyes Diaz. And I'll start with Member Labure, if you'd like to introduce yourself and give us just a little bit of feedback about yourself.
Sure. Thank you, everybody, for having me. I'm Matthew Larabure, born and raised Petaluma, work in Marin, know Eddie through Nevada Chamber of Commerce, which we've done a lot with and support. And I love the town, love the area, and thought I'd help out, give back, and support the SMART train. I take it 2 to 3 days a week and love it.
Great, thank you. Member Mann? Just push the button there. There we go.
My name is Emma Mann. I'm a business owner and property owner in Pengrove. My property borders the SMART train. The train's very much an aspect of Pengrove business. So we just really felt like having representation on the committee was important to us as a business community.
Thank you. Member Reyes Diaz?
Hello, everyone. Yes, my name is Jefferson Reyes Diaz, resident of Novato, recent graduate from university, and it's been a great experience thus far, relearning how to engage with my neighborhood and my city and my county on a bike. And I look forward to seeing what it is I can do to help the agency support that opportunity for other people.
Great, thank you. Chair Sheehan Meyer?
My name is Danny Sheehan Meyer, and I followed the SMART train quite closely as the treasurer for and media maven for Friends of SMART. Come to all the meetings and look under rocks. I think you'll all enjoy, and I hope that you will take measures to also attend meetings, and maybe this year we can do a little more social, as long as we announce ahead of time that we intend to attend a certain event, because we are partial to the Brown Act. We're required to answer to that. I want to welcome everybody. I'm not the chair. I'm still the chair for like 1 more minute. And just tell you my style is to call on you by your first name, so I don't make a lot of stumbles. But anyway, welcome to all our new members, and welcome back to the ones who are returning.
Great. I would also like the current members to just introduce yourself to the new members as well by your first and last name. We'll start with Vice Chair.
I'm Tom Engdahl. I represent Novato, or Marin County. I live in Novato and have been part of this now for quite a while. I raised my family in Novato and work out of there. I'm an entrepreneur. I start companies.
Great. Member Haggerty?
Good after, is this working? Yeah. Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Haggerty. I'm a resident of San Rafael. I'm the current president of the League of Women Voters of Marin County and also represent the Sonoma County League of Women Voters on this. They're the ones who sponsored me to serve on this committee.
Thank you. Member Nachor?
Hey, my name is Anthony, and I have been living in Novato for over 20 years, and I am a transportation planner by trade. So I am one of those people responsible for addressing issues like schedule reliability, like a vehicle maintenance, and I communicate often with not just the stakeholders and also the leaders, but also employees with other agencies to determine how to make their service better. And I also serve on another citizens advisory committee in San Francisco with the Trans-Bay Joint Powers Authority.
Thank you. Member McCubbin?
Yes, Sandy McCubbin. I live in Healdsburg. I'm a retired lobbyist in the state of California. And I had numerous transportation clients when I was working.
Thank you. I have also provided you informational binders with some of the SMARTS materials, and those could be updated on a yearly basis if you like, or at the request by email. I'll be happy to provide those for you if you have any questions on those. With that, do you have any questions for us? Great. Thank you so much and welcome all of you. We'll move to item number 3, which is the election of the chair and the vice chair for 2 years. I'm going to provide you a little bit of information on the chair and vice chair duties. Presentation is coming up, and I have a slide that provides the duties of the chair is to call the meeting to order, preside over the meeting, identify items of interest for the future committee and agendas that are relevant to the committee's responsibilities, attend or appoint another committee member to attend meetings of the district in which strategic plan updates and matters that are being reviewed by the district, serve as the liaison to SMART and staff between meetings, serve as the designated spokesperson for the committee for matters before the SMART Board of Directors meetings, and provide semi-annual reports to the SMART Board of Directors. Duties of the vice chairperson are to perform all the duties of the chairperson when the chairperson is absent. I'll give you a little bit of information as to speaking at the board meetings. Typically, you will speak at the board meetings after the meeting just to give an update of what you have heard from SMART and provide the board some feedback also. Those are the 2 last items on that. So those are the duties of the chair and the vice chair. With that, we'll go ahead and move for the election of the chair. The chairperson and the vice chair shall be nominated and appointed by the committee. The appointed will be by majority vote. In the event of a vacancy of the chairperson, the vice chair shall cede the chairperson the balance of the term of the chair. The committee shall elect a successor to fill the vacancy of the vice chair position. The newly elected chair and vice chair will assume their new roles at the next meeting. So it will be at the next meeting in May. So the chair will finish their roles this meeting and the vice chair as well. With that, I will open up the meeting and take a nomination for a chair.
Yes, I would like to nominate our current chair and vice chair to stay in the same position.
Do I have a second or another nomination?
I second that.
Can I get an aye? Anybody oppose? No? All ayes?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Thank you. So we have a new chair, same chair, new chair for another 2 years. It's a new chair for 2 more years and a new chair for 2 more years for the vice chair. Welcome
Thank you.
with your roles again.
Thank you, Sandy.
With that, we'll go ahead and move to item number 3, which is the approval of the November 13 minutes. Can I get a motion?
Can I make a motion?
Yes,
Oh, okay. Make a
Yeah.
motion.
you could go ahead. I'm already thinking I'm the chair.
I was a little confused there. Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the COC the approval of the November 13th minutes? Those who aren't on the board, do they have to abstain at the
The
time?
ones that were not here, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting, November 13, 2024.
Second. Sandy, second. And we still have a quorum with the rest of us. Anthony, Sandy, Kevin, Tom, do we all agree to accept the minutes?
Yes.
Thank you. And now we go to my favorite part, the general manager's report.
Actually, COC announcements. See, I already tried to step up.
Do we have any member announcements? This could be something happening in your community. This could be happening, within your outlook for this board. I don't see any at this time, so we can move on now to my favorite part, the general manager's report.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the COC. I have 6 items today. I will go over the ridership report, talk about some upcoming service improvements, talk about our pathway opening events that we have coming up real soon. Wanted to kind of deep dive into the Windsor extension update. That's getting very, very close. So just wanted to provide us additional detail on that. And then just wanted to talk about the 2026 election cycle. And then at the end, we have recently had our National Transit Employee Appreciation Day. And so we just had a short video that we wanted to show everybody on that event. And then, of course, at the end, I'll open it up for questions. I will start off with ridership. In February, we had 81,731 riders. That was 32% higher than February of 2024. So as you can see from the orange on the chart, that's FY24. FY25 is the green. You can see that we've had consistent, steady year-over-year growth over the past many, many months. Looking at our average weekday ridership, February average weekday ridership was 3,404. That was 37% above February 24 and March. Slide says 3,605, but our ridership the last probably week, 4 or 5 days has been really, really strong. So I anticipate that this number is going to continue to climb as we finish out the month strong. And currently we're 34% above March of 2024. From time to time, we like to compare ourselves to other agencies in the North Bay area. And to do that, we look at the National Transit Database data. That's a database that all agencies report to. And so as you can see, the latest information that's out there that's posted is for January, so it lags a month or two. But in January, we had 92,492 boardings. That was the 5th highest in Sonoma-Marin County. But when you look at passenger miles traveled, SMART actually had the highest number of passenger miles traveled. In January, SMART carried over 2 million passenger miles. That was 29% of the total and the highest in Marin and Sonoma counties. And so what's happening here? The average SMART rider rides about 22 miles. And so for each one of those boardings, you can multiply by 22, right in that range, and that gets you to your total number. One of the stretch goals that we set for ourselves this year was to get to 1 million riders in FY25. And so we're tracking our progress. We're currently at about 66% of the way through the year, and you can see that we're at about 70% of our goal. We've already carried almost 700,000 riders, still with a few months left to go. So we're at 70%, but I feel very confident that we're going to hit 1 million riders in FY25, which I think is a huge milestone for us. We're also tracking passenger miles. We set a stretch goal to reach 22 million passenger miles. To date, through February, we've carried 14,755,866 passenger miles, currently at 67% of our goal. So just slightly above where we are in the year. So again, this one's going to be a stretch, I think, as we continue to open new stations. We're noticing that although ridership is going up, the distance that people travel is going down. And so that's an interesting thing that's happening. But I still feel confident that once Windsor opens, we pick up all those new riders, we're going to see this number take off. And again, I feel confident that we're going to hit 22 million passenger miles in FY25. Our pathway counts also continue to be strong. In February, we had 60,863 pathway trips, and that was 29% higher than it was in February of 24. Again, we're about ready to open 9 miles of new pathway here real soon in April. And so again, I think we're going to see these numbers go through the roof as well. Also wanted to just talk about some upcoming service improvements that we have based on the success of our Larkspur Connect shuttle. Excuse me, we are planning to expand to 7 days a week. We are going to do that in conjunction with with Giant Season. And so we're planning to start that on April 7th. You can see that we've been averaging about 40 riders a day on that service. And this is a partnership that we plan to continue for partial funding with Smart Golden Gate Transit and the Transportation Authority Marin. That's been a great relationship, and we plan to continue that. And I already mentioned this, but it's the launch is timed to support the beginning of Giant Season that starts on Saturday, April 4th. This is another one that we're very excited about. Sonoma County Transit changed the alignment of Route 20 to provide better connection to the smart downtown Santa Rosa station. Route 20 connects the Lower Russian River area and Sebastopol to the Santa Rosa Transit Mall via Highway 12. The bus now stops on 3rd Street to provide a smart connection, and this change took effect on Sunday, March 16th. And SCT has added smart times to its schedule to improve customer information. This is what I believe to be a huge win for our riders in the area, and we appreciate our partnership with Sonoma County Transit. Also wanted to just take a minute to let everyone know, the COC and the public know that SMART is inviting the public to join us to celebrate the opening of 2 new segments of the SMART Pathway, Great Redwood Trail in Sonoma County. 2 separate events because we have 2 different segments there. We're on Saturday, April 26th, we're going to do Roanoke Park to Santa Rosa. We're calling it the Walk, Ride, and Roll. Start time is 10:30 a.m. Start location will be the Roanoke Park Station, and we will end at Andy Lopez Unity Park. And then on Sunday, April 27th, we will do the Petaluma to Pingrove, Walk, Ride, and Roll. Again, start time is 10:30. We will start at the Petaluma North Station, and the end location will be the Pingrove Market Patio. And I kind of just, like as I mentioned in the beginning, wanted to give an update on the Windsor extension and just provide a little bit more information, a little bit more detail on this extension. We've made a lot of progress over the last couple of months. All track is currently in place. The pathway is paved. Striping is all done. The station and shelters are constructed. So a lot of good stuff going on there. We are finishing up train control systems installation, and really where I wanted to really foot stomp some things is on our next steps. Train testing is planned for April. Testing will take a little longer than we originally, this thing's got a mind of its own. Train testing is going to take a little longer than we originally anticipated. The contractor originally requested 24/7 testing window. We denied that just based on the impacts, knowing that there's going to be bells, at the crossings, the horn will be blowing, those types of things. Just thought that would be a lot of impact to the community. So we set testing hours limited from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. to mitigate the disruption. This will require closure of Airport Station on multiple weekends to allow us to do the cut-in and get everything done. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a future slide. And then once we're done with testing, we'll go into pre-revenue testing, and that's planned for May. So here's just a schedule. You can see complete track and track station in the pathway. All that'll be done by the end of March. Train testing in April, simulated service in May. And simulated services essentially will be running the full schedule. We just won't be picking up passengers. And again, I'll provide a little more detail about that in the future slide. And then the plan is by the end of May to be open for passengers. So here's just a slide on the temporary closures for Sonoma County Airport Station. Again, we'll be doing this on the weekends. First weekend will be April 5th and 6th, and then it'll be April 12th and 13th. April 20th, we're not doing the 19th because that's Butter and Eggs Day. That's kind of Smart Super Bowl. So we anticipate a lot of people are going to be riding, so we weren't going to close the station on that particular day. And then we're hopeful that we will be done after that third weekend, but just in case, I don't know why this is moving. And just in case, we tentatively have scheduled the April 26th and 27th, just in case we need it. But again, hopefully we'll be done by that time. So what to expect over the next few months? System testing starting early April. We'll be running one test train operating between Sonoma County Airport Station and Windsor Station. During this time, the grade warning systems, the lights, the gates, the bells, all those types of things will be activated. It allows us to prove safe operation of those warning devices. And then the next step is our train control system, which is our positive train control speed enforcement. And that proves proper speed enforcement throughout the Windsor extension. And the public will hear the train horn and bell at grade crossings along with bells located on our warning devices. And again, they will hear these sounds between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. 7 days a week. Once we are done with testing, we will go into simulated service. This involves us operating, as I previously mentioned, full frequency revenue service without the passengers. It provides time for our engineers to get familiar with the new territory, enables extension of our systems testing. That way, if anything's going to go wrong or if we find any bugs, we're able to work those things out before we have passengers on board. One thing that I really want the community to know, I want the COC, our board, everyone to know that until the town of Windsor establishes a quiet zone, the public will hear the train horn at Shiloh Road, Mitchell Lane, and the Windsor Roundabout and Windsor Station Access Crossing. We will be running 42 trips a day plus our deadhead trips, and that'll be weekdays from 4 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. and weekends from 6:30 a.m. to around 9:30 p.m. And so already I've received a few phone calls and emails, and I think that those are going to increase. But I would assume that many of you will likely get some of those emails and phone calls. And I just want to be as clear as I can on this. This is an option. This isn't something that is optional. Federal regulations require smart engineers to sound the horn when approaching grade crossings. I won't read this whole thing to you, but it's 49 CFR Part 222, and it essentially says that you shall blow the horn during this time. So during the testing phase, it is 100% required that we blow the horn, right? And then until the town of Windsor implements the quiet zone, we are required to blow the horn. Once the quiet zone is implemented, then the horn piece will go away. Obviously, residents in the area will continue to hear the bells on the train as well as at the crossing, but the horn will have to be blown until it goes away. So once this starts on April 5th, I would assume that there will be some impact to the community. We are going to do everything we can to limit that impact, hence not running 24/7. But it's definitely going to be an impact. And I know people are going to ask us not to blow the horn, but it's not something that is optional. And so we're just sharing with everybody we can this information to let them know the why behind our reasons. It's been a long time since trains have ran in the Windsor area, so we're just reminding folks of some train safety. Never walk on the railroad tracks. It's both illegal and dangerous. Only cross the tracks at designated railroad crossings. Always wait for the bells and lights to stop and the gate to rise before crossing. Never stop your car on the tracks. Stay alert and don't be distracted by cell phones or headphones. And so here we are, We plan to, if everything goes well, we plan to start passenger service in late May 2025. And tentatively, we have the grand opening event scheduled for June 13th, 2025. We hope to have everybody there. Just as a reminder, we had almost 600 people attend the opening of Petaluma North Station as an infill station. So we have very, very high hopes that we'll have well over 1,000 people at this particular event. So it's going to be great, and just encourage everybody to be there if you can. Almost to the end here. I left this slide in because this is something that I briefed the board on at the last board meeting, just letting them know that there's been some conversation. I think most on this committee know that smart sales tax expires in 2029. So that leaves us with either 2026 or 2028 to extend the sales tax. I just wanted to put this on the board's radar because we know time flies by really quickly. And if the board wants to consider 2026, I just wanted to make sure that they were thinking along these lines. So the board would have two choices. They could go in June in the primary, or they could go in November of the general election. And there's few requirements that the board would have to do. Number one, the board need to pass a resolution containing the following information. It would call for an election to put the measure on the ballot, request Sonoma County and Marin County supervisors to consolidate the election with other elections held on the same date. And lastly, or not lastly, but request Sonoma-Marin County supervisors permit the elections department to provide election services. Obviously, SMART would have to pay for any costs that were incurred, and then provides for a tax measure question to appear on the ballot, which is limited to 75 words. The reason I put this on the board's radar is because there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There is a timeline that things have to be done in. And so, as I pointed out to the board, among other things, number one, you would need to determine readiness. We're doing some surveying. We did a survey about a year ago. It's probably time to relook at that, see if we made some level of improvement, just to see where we are. We need to develop an expenditure plan, draft and adopt an ordinance and a ballot question, and draft and adopt a resolution to place a full text measure in the next election. So obviously a lot of work to do. The board did direct staff to start working on these things. And so the idea is that we'll go back to the April board meeting and provide drafts of all the information that we have and start that conversation with both the board and the public and start to get those things drafted. And lastly, just wanted to highlight some of our great employees. I think this committee knows it, but I truly believe that we have the best employees in the business. So this is National Transit Employee Appreciation Day. Of course, we appreciate all of those transit folks out there, but we especially love the smart ones. So I'll play this quick video for you. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, Eddie, what about the on-demand shuttle at the airport? I never see that being used. Is
Really?
it being
Oh,
used?
yeah.
Is it?
Yeah,
good.
absolutely.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, so it has its time of where and when it gets used,
Okay.
right? So it brings people into the train and then it'll park there till the next train arrives. And then once that people hop
Yeah.
on there, it'll go. But yeah, it's actually just last week was the Smart Connect shuttle best week ever.
Oh, wow,
For
great.
both the Larkspur shuttle and the airport shuttle, both performing really well. So yeah, both doing a good
Great.
job. I mean, you're never going to see these kinds of services where they're carrying hundreds of thousands of people or anything like that, right? But it is allowing people to use it to get to the airport.
Great.
And then there's a lot of folks, the the planning manager and I got on a train the other day just to talk to some of the riders that take the 4:39 a.m. trip down and the folks that come back and get to airport station about 7:30. And I talked to probably 10 to 15 people that told me they take the shuttle to get to work and they don't work at the airport. So it's being used a lot for the airport, but
Right.
people are using it just to move around in that area in general. Thank
Good.
you.
So Eddie, now that you've dropped the opening date for the Windsor service, and thank you also for bringing up Sonoma County 20 being realigned, would that be an opportunity as well for your agency to work with Sonoma County Transit further to work on Sonoma County Transit's schedules through Windsor? Because if I remember, there are at least 2 routes that go through Windsor Station, and will there be an opportunity for schedule coordination at the new Windsor Station? The process.
Yeah, I think this is a step in the right direction, right, of getting this one thing done. But yes, we're all at the table together. We are having these conversations about how do we feed one another, right? I think in order for transit to be successful, you have to think of it as a system. We're not just smart. We're part of the overall system in Sonoma and Marin counties. And so I think others think the same way, and it's just about getting those things lined up. Obviously, we all have our own customers that we kind of cater to, that are doing different things with different routes. But I think we can come to a place where we can coordinate better.
Thank you, because truthfully, I really would love to see Sonoma County Transit Service through Windsor and beyond to operate not just daily, but also frequently as well, especially with the amount of trains that you're putting in and the potential ridership that will come in from points north like Windsor and Healdsburg and Cloverdale, especially on Route 60 with Sonoma County Transit, where it is pretty much the only service north of Santa Rosa until the new smart service through Windsor comes in.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's on our radar.
Eddie, thanks for the report. I have a couple questions.
Sir.
One, has there been any news or thinking about a citizens-generated initiative?
I think that's a great question. And, I know that I get that question all the time. So I know that there's at least folks out there thinking about it. But I need to be very clear because I got this question at the board meeting as well. As staff and our board, we cannot be involved in a citizens-led initiative, right? That's going to be something that the citizens are going to have to pick up and run with and develop a campaign and those types of things. So for the way that I feel like we have to look at it, I feel like my job is 2/3. So that's where my mind is, right? And so that's where we are today. If somebody picks that up and runs with it, that's great, but it's not anything that we can influence or be a part of. The one thing that I do know of just looking into what the requirements are for a citizens-led initiative to put this on the ballot, they would need 10% of registered voters in Sonoma and Marin County to qualify it for the ballot. So at a minimum, you would need 48,100 signatures. So it's definitely not just a slam dunk, easy lift. It would really take some doing to collect that number of signatures. So again, to answer your question, I've had people I've heard people talking about it and asking me questions about it. And the feedback that I get of everyone is, in my mind, it would take a coalition of people to be able to do this, not just one person, right?
Thank you. The other question I had is, one of the considerations, I think, in terms of timing would be what else is on the ballot, both in Sonoma and Marin counties. Is that something that the board is looking at? For example, if there's a housing measure on there and people are voting for a couple tax measures, that may make it difficult for one or either of those things to pass. And if there's a regional, I know in the last day or two, there's been some information about some proposed, or there's been some talk for a long time about a Bay Area 9-county regional transportation tax that's been amended. I think Sonoma and Marin have been removed in a preliminary proposal. But that would also probably is a factor in what the board decides.
Yeah, I think it'll be a part of the conversation. I mean, we haven't got to the point of deciding what's the better date of June or November. I think those conversations are coming depending on what we see out there. The latest information I'm seeing is the same thing you're seeing in regard to the regional measure. Right now, it looks to me like it's going to be 3 counties, with 2 counties having the option to opt in. And the North Bay counties are not a part of that at this time. But I do think that, you know, it's something that the board's going to have to consider and think about. Obviously, you know, what else is on the ballot, what's the right timing, and what's going to give us the best opportunity to be successful. You know, I think, you know, you always think that November is the best time when you get the best voter turnout. But I don't think June's off the table at this time. So we'll continue to have those conversations. But again, my plan is to go back in April and provide the board all the information we have. And I think that's when you're really going to see the conversations take off and, you know, staff to be getting direction to move forward. Thank you.
I have some questions. So,
Good.
is that okay? So on your April 27th event, did you bring that slide up?
Can you pull up
Well, we
the
have-
slides?
26th and 27th.
April, I thought it was April 27th in Pengrove where you
There's
end at the
2.
market.
I'm on my way.
It's okay.
There we go.
So would it be able to get, I'd be able to get more details on that? We run the Pengrove website and social media channel, so we'd love to co-promote that if possible.
Yes,
I can leave my contact info.
yes, we'll get you all the information
Yeah,
you need.
so
So there's a few things. The fence that's going up right now along the bike path that protects the smart train traffic
Mm.
from, that according to Rabbit's office was going to be completed in March, but I take it it's going to take a little bit longer. You know, the completion date for that fence?
Yeah, it's all coming together right at the end. I mean, we had some supply chain issues that we were dealing with. But yeah, we plan to have everything done by this time. I would have to check with my engineering staff. There he is. When will the fence be in? By the 27th, we'll have everything done.
Yeah, we're just a little concerned about safety because we're the neighboring businesses. And so there's been an uptick in graffiti now that the bike path is open, of course, because that's what people
Well, they're
do.
not supposed to be using it. It's still closed.
Yeah, there are people on that all the time, especially at night when the graffiti's happening. So, you know, of course, we've been having conversations on how do we get the graffiti not to happen because we don't necessarily want Pengrove to look like an inner city.
Yeah.
Because people won't come. And they'll see that every day that they're riding on the train, so that's not ideal. So we've been talking to Rabbit's office, is there any funding with the county that we can be proactive or put up any sort of security, you know, monitoring to make sure that we nip that in the bud? And the third issue with that bike path that is a concern, I'm sure you know that Pengrove is a floodplain, most of it, with the exception of Pengrove Station. That's the only area that's not in the flood zone. But there's been ponding on the bike path. So anytime that there's an atmospheric river or a set of storms, you know, we're all on high alert because we start to see the flooding down on the south end by the park and it just starts moving up to Boar's Head and the mobile home park. But David Royal, who works at the Eli Station, has said that of late with these atmospheric rivers that we've been having back to back, that there's been more ponding. So there's work going on to move the water off that's coming off Sonoma-Marin, coming through the yards and ponding on the bike path. Do you know, I haven't been able, I'm also on zone 2A. So I haven't been able to get a clear answer on to where those lines that they're putting, those big pipes are going. Can anybody help me with that?
I'd like to introduce you to Bill Gamlin, Smart Chief Engineer.
Oh, excellent.
Good afternoon, COC. Yeah, we're doing some drainage work out there now. We receive a tremendous amount of water from the storage facility
Right.
that's just up from the pathway. That wasn't fully planned for in our design, so we're adding some drainage features now that will channel that down to, I think that's Leach Out Creek.
So that will drain into Lehigh?
Mhm.
And do you know what's coming out of those storage drains?
Surface runoff.
It's just that as part of Zone 2A, I know that there are threatened and endangered species in Lehigh. So there's our concern that whatever's going into Lehigh isn't affecting the
Sure,
things that are
makes
living in
sense, yeah.
So I guess, is there sort of any analysis of the stormwater runoff and what it consists of?
There really isn't, no.
Can that happen?
We can look into something like that, yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to leave my contact information. And so do you know what volume that is? Like,
No, we don't.
because at the last Zone 2A meeting, we had asked while Supervisor Rabbit was there, if there was an environmental impact report for that project of the path. And he said that he thought there was, but we hadn't seen one yet.
Yeah, we did an environmental impact report for the overall SMART project that included the pathway.
But not necessarily the ponding that's happening now.
Well, hopefully there will be no ponding when we're done. I mean, that wasn't really anticipated.
Right. But it's happening, and so that will continue to happen until you're done with this. I mean, you're assuming that this is the solution to deal with the pond that's
Correct.
happening.
Correct.
Do you know that that's what's going to be the solution?
We believe it to be, yes.
But I mean, are there any engineering reports that would show like this is actually going to stop? Because whatever comes from the storage unit
Mhm.
comes onto the path, comes onto the train tracks, comes into Pengrove Station, floods the park, and every year the park is flooded. So everything is interconnected.
Right, and at this point, we're intercepting that water that's coming into the SMART pathway from the storage units and channelizing it. I mean, really, neighbors shouldn't be draining onto each other's property, but
Right.
we're accommodating what's coming onto our property.
I would love to leave my contact info if I could ask follow-up questions later
Sure.
too. Okay.
Any other questions? Oh, please go ahead.
All right. Thank you. The first question is, and this just out of curiosity, says more stations are open, less miles are traveled. How's that? Why is that?
But what's interesting is we wondered what was going to happen when Petaluma North opened, right? So were people still going to go to Petaluma downtown, or were they going to go to, were they going to use Petaluma North? What ended up happening was interesting because we're seeing about 230 boardings a day on average at our new Petaluma North station already. However, ridership at our boardings at Petaluma downtown have not gone down, right? So all the new riders have, it's all worked out. But I was on the train, and I think that there's a lot of this happening now that didn't happen in the past. But I was on a train, met a lady that lives over on this side, and she was riding the train to downtown Petaluma. She got on at Petaluma North and just went one station. And she said, hey, this is easier for me. It's faster. I don't get stuck in the traffic, and it's easier for me to just do this. And so what we believe to be happening is a lot of people are doing that. They're only going one station. As we have more youth ride, they're going to their friend's house, and they're just starting to, maybe go one or two stations, and that's it. It's not just people traveling long distances. So when I say that it's gone down, it's not huge. It's gone from like 22 miles per boarding, and it's down to like 21.4 or something like that. But it's a sign of things to come. And so it's just something that we're paying attention to and seeing how people are utilizing the system. The other thing that we anticipate will happen, if you look at cell phone data of Windsor trips, 75% of the trips that originate in Windsor terminate in Santa Rosa. So that would lead you to believe that the vast majority of Windsor ridership that's going southbound are going to get off somewhere in Santa Rosa. That makes sense?
Yeah.
And so again, that'd be less than 22 miles. And so as boardings go up, we may see mileage go down. And then of course, travel patterns could change again, and it could go to 25 miles. Who knows what's going to happen?
Thank
So,
you for
but
that.
that's what we believe to be happening right now.
That makes sense. So, as part of the 2026 elections, Danny and I and bunches of others were involved in the last one of the election committee. One of the biggest problems was that there was a real lack of what was trying to be done with the new tax. That it was an extension, it wasn't the brand new tax and all that sort of stuff. And there's congratulations that need to go around on the ridership and how it's increased, but there's still a lot of thought out there that the train is overly expensive and it's just more taxes on top of taxes. Would it make sense to have a marketing program that shows off the ridership a whole lot more than it is right now. I mean, I wait and I get to see it when I come to these meetings,
Mhm.
but on, general everyday stuff,
You know,
ridership numbers.
it's interesting because, yeah, yes, we can market it. Yes, we try to put it out there. It's in our newsletters and things like that. And a lot of times we do like press releases, but the media doesn't pick up on everything. And so you can kind of overdo it and oversaturate the media. And so one thing that we do anticipate is that once we hit that million number, which we are going to do, we are going to celebrate that one big time, right? Because that's a huge milestone and one that we'll get a lot of traction with. But, we put out a lot of stuff on social media. We put stuff out on our website. We have our newsletter. We do some level of marketing, but generally, like in the papers and radio and things like that. But rather than saying, "Hey, we're at this number of our ridership," we're kind of focusing those limited marketing dollars on getting more riders.
One of the things, like I said, in the last election, it did better because it went over 50%, but it didn't go to the 2/3. One of the real problems was the messaging that went out was wrong. My opinion, but I've been involved in so many other elections
Right.
involved, the messaging was not right.
Mhm.
And also the group that was hired to do that was, let's see, really lackadaisical at best. And that's being very nice. And so one of the things that I would really encourage you guys to do is take a look at a really good public relations agency or election agency to come in and do that and really get the messaging right. And part of that is letting people know. I mean, I still remember the gal that was on social media talking about how she was doing her own ridership count by looking at the trains as they zip by and counting whatever heads she could see in there. But I do think it's important. I mean, you've done such a good job and the ridership is up so far from where it was. I really think it's important to let everybody know that. And then also to have a very, very clear message of the tax and what it means.
Yeah, so, I think this committee did a great job with the strategic plan and the direction you provided in the strategic plan. And I think that's the building blocks for an expenditure plan, right? Following kind of that format. I think that the public has to be engaged in this process. I think there has to be a level of ownership. And so the idea is to get this information out there, get it out to the public so they can see what's in there as a draft. And then we can have, obviously the board, but this is an opportunity to work on that thing, on that expenditure plan and the full text measure as we move forward. There's when it comes to the messaging, that's something we think about. I get the question all the time. Let's just be clear. I get the question all the time. They say, "When are you going to start the campaign?" I started a little over 3 years ago, right? When I got here, I knew that this was what needed to be done. I knew that we had to extend the sales tax and all the things that we've done, all the improvements that we've made as a team. This has all been getting us ready for this day. And so the campaign has already started in my mind because we knew what we needed to do, at least to give us an opportunity and a chance. So that's where we are. But I don't disagree with you. This has to be well managed. It has to be well run. It has to be well communicated. I have an opportunity to get out a lot to different groups. And the staff kind of teases me from time to time, but everywhere I go, I talk about ridership. I mean, it's the first topic that I have because it is our biggest success. And so we do our best to get the word out there. But when it comes to communication with the public, there's always room for improvement, and we acknowledge that.
Okay, one last question. I always have to ask, how's the freight train doing?
Freight train's doing okay. We've actually been having record months as far as freight. I think I've told you this before, but Lagunitas is up production in their area, and so that leads to more train cars, and so we're moving right along, continuing to do a lot of work out there. Knock on wood, we don't have any more floods. because that's always a real challenge for us. And anytime that we get flooded out there, it's usually a couple of weeks worth of work to get that freight line back up and running. And so that costs us time and money. So yeah, but overall, it's doing pretty good.
All right, thank you.
I just want to comment on the campaign and the last campaign versus this campaign and the public perception of the train at that time and this time is really moved forward quite a bit. And it's one of those things as an advocate, full-time advocate, unpaid, but full-time advocate. As you see people ride the train, they embrace the train. And so it's really about those ridership numbers and getting people on the train, ride the train. You got a problem with the train? Go ride the train.
Yeah.
You want to know some information about the train? Well, look it up.
Yeah.
Let's show you where to look it up.
So something that came out in the last survey that we did that is extremely important. If you've ever even one time stepped foot on the SMART train, even one time, you were 85% likely to vote yes. So train sells itself, right? If you get on it, you ride it, you use it. Generally, you leave with a good impression of it.
Good work.
So
Good
that's-
job.
Yeah, so that's foot stomping what you just said, getting people on the train and getting them to experience it. And we've seen that, the board passed the free fare for seniors and youth. The number of seniors that are riding today is incredibly high. And, those are all a lot of new riders.
Please, go ahead, Jeff. You're welcome.
Thank you. Do you have stats on, say, percentage of full per trip? And I say that in the sense of, 81,731 riders in February sounds great, but I have no frame of reference. Is that compared to what? I use percentages all the time, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
1 million riders sounds great, but so what?
Yeah.
And I get it a lot of, oh, I don't see anybody on the train. I see that from anecdotally, but if it's, no, it's, I use it, say, when I took it, there was standing room only. It seemed like it's 90% full, that kind of stuff. Is there, is that information out there? These trips are this percentage full? Obviously different commute times.
Yeah, we have that level of data that we can look up. So to say, what does good look like, right? So if we compare ourselves to pre-pandemic, we're about 50% above pre-pandemic ridership. Most agencies, and especially in the Bay Area, have not recovered from that point, have not reached back to their pre-pandemic levels. We're 50% above it, and we've been above pre-pandemic level for about 22 months. So from that perspective, we're doing good. Now, if you compare SMART's ridership to Caltrain or BART, it's minimal, right? So they much bigger systems. But yeah, for our population, I think we're doing quite well.
Yeah, I was thinking more of like capacity of the train of say this trip has this many people that could fit in the train. Is it 30% full, 60% full?
Oh yeah, we can pull that data and share that with you.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
Love to see it.
It's a tough one to communicate and talk about, because are you just talking about the number of seats? Are you talking about the full range? Because the challenge with it is everybody uses the train differently, right? So the train has the capability to, fill up multiple times as it goes down, because people are getting off at each station, new people are getting on. And so it really is a tough one to say, what is the full train capacity all the way? If you only look at, there's this number of seats and there's this amount of standing room, then you can go from there. So it's all in how you want to look at it as to, what capacity is and what the expectations of it is.
And aren't you running a third car on the morning route?
Yeah, the 710 southbound is currently running a 3-car train. And so, yeah, we anticipate that more of those will be coming in the near future.
The first south.
One thing that it's kind of interesting, you talk about, we had a board member ask at the last board meeting, says, okay, so you say we're going to get to 1 million riders. That's great. But what does that mean for people? And so we did an analysis, and it is kind of tough to figure this out because we don't have data on seniors and youth. but we do on adults, right? And so we kind of extrapolated that information. But our estimate is that over the last 11 months, we've had 130,000 unique riders, meaning 130,000 different people have ridden the SMART train in Sonoma-Marin counties over the last 11 months. And so, again, it's always tough to throw out numbers like that because if you are trying to push back against the SMART train, you can say, where did you get that? And how did you get that? And you should have done it this way. But because again, there's a lot of data we don't have with the seniors and youth. Is exactly what number of them have boarded.
Eddie, I have a suggestion. If you were to extrapolate passenger data, maybe you can do station by station, let's say between Larkspur and San Rafael, and then San Rafael to Marin Civic Center, for example, so that we can analyze which portions get the most ridership, because you're going to have each station will have different number of people boarding and unloading. And you also get to understand where the most crowded portion, like a portions of the line can be, so that you can anticipate, do we need 3 car trains on this particular trip, for example, like what you said, the 7 to 10 a.m. trip out of Sonoma County Airport. And at the same time, we also can determine in the long run, for example, how many more trains may be needed to accommodate this many people in the long run. For example, there is something called like a crush load, wherein you get asked things like, between which stations get the most number of standees? From there, you can understand, okay, we're gonna need to add more frequency, or we can add more train vehicles onto, like the track, so that we can bring in even more people onto the trains and reduce congestion along Highway 101. So you can extrapolate data from there and say, between this portion, let's say between Novato, San Marin, and Larkspur, that's where you get a lot more riders, and that's where you can put in additional trains on that portion of the line, so that we can bring in even more people onto the trains and reduce congestion along the Novato Narrows, for example.
Yeah, that's work we do every day, right? That's what we do every day, is trying to figure out how to create the best system to support the needs of the community, right? We have our operations team, our planning team, they're working on, what special events are happening, what's going on, where are people going, what's happening, when do we need to add a 3rd car, where's additional frequency required? I mean, that's Transit 101, right? We do that every day.
Kevin and then Tom.
Yes, just following up what a couple other members have talked about in terms of the election. One, you and your staff have done a super job improving the reputation of SMART and building ridership. I think, as you point out, that's key to getting the tax measure improved. But one of the things that in my opinion, really made a big difference in getting the initial tax thing through is building an organized coalition of people like bike riders and the League of Women Voters and businesses and environmental groups. And if the election is going to occur, for example, in June of 2026, that's just almost a year away. And I'm concerned that organized coalition does not yet exist. So whether you have it in the primary or the November election in 2026, it's really important that coalition work begins on building that coalition, because I think that's going to make a huge difference.
Thank you.
Tom?
One real quick question. When they open up the Freeway 101 with all the new lanes going through the Novato Narrows, how will that affect ridership on the train? Will people say, okay, now it's not such a traffic jam, we'll get in my car and drive? Just curious.
My experience is when you add a freeway lane, it just fills up. But I don't anticipate it's going to, right? I mean, I'm in the transit business, so I don't think that's going to degrade our ridership. I think the people that are choosing to ride SMART are doing it for a lot of different reasons. And so we're not anticipating a loss of ridership when that opens.
Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, please, Jeffrey.
I had a couple of questions. My first was regarding the Larkspur shuttles. So my understanding is that there are two routes as of now. The one going to the ferry terminal, and then I think it's a weekend only route to the town center, Corte Madera. That weekend route is that going to stay like weekend only, or is that also being expanded?
Oh, thank you for the question. No, that's only going to be on the weekends. And here's the reason. During the weekdays, we run 30-minute service, right? And so it's only one vehicle and it only has a certain amount of time before it's got to get people back to the train. On the weekends, we run less frequency, right? So it has an hour, hour and a half to go out and do more work and then bring people back to the train, right? And so it's really just about a timing issue. To do any more there, you would have to add a second vehicle and, you know, it would be tough. So that's one of the drawbacks of the microtransit is that, you know, it can only do so much work in a given area. And if you expand it too far, it gets to the point to where it doesn't do a good job at anything. Right now, it does a really good job of connecting the train to the ferry.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and then my second question was regarding lighting along the smart pathway. I've had a chance to attend a couple of meetings for the Nevada's Complete Streets and Pathways Committee. Seems like a recurring theme is that they're wondering about whether lighting is being implemented in in pathways that are currently being designed, and if there's also an initiative to kind of retrofit existing pathways with lighting.
Right. Currently, no, lighting is not a part of it now, but that's something that, you know, we'll look at in the future.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
And then my last question was whether kind of what the communication is between smart and drop mobility in regards to getting their bike hubs like onto navigation apps like Google Maps, just because I believe they are not present at the moment, and so those just aren't accounted for at all. Like for example, when the app's giving you a suggested route. So I don't know whether that looks like a nudge or something, but I think that would help.
I'll have to follow up on that one with my planning staff to see if they're working on that. Right, that's good feedback. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
We'll look into it.
Do you like Jefferson or Jeff?
Jefferson, please.
Jefferson, of
Yeah.
course. Any more questions? I have one that's related to the events, particularly the ones coming up for the bike paths. And because we are a COC, and I'm encouraging everybody to go, I can't go, I'll be in Texas. So I'll be there for Windsor, but I can't go to the bike paths. But if anybody wants to go, if they could notify me or Laddie so that we can make sure that whether we have to make an announcement or not. So because we do have a Brown Act contingency. So I really encourage you to go. It's great to show up, and it's a, you know, the environment's always very happy, and she throws some donuts out, you know, it's good stuff. Okay. Public comment.
Looks like we have no public comment at this time.
Seeing no public comment, we'll go to my next favorite part, fiscal year budget timeline, Chief Financial Officer Heather McKillop.
Well, thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Heather McKillop, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer here at SMART. So it's nice to meet all of you. We are going to talk a little bit about the fiscal year 25-26 budget. And I just want to talk a little bit about what is a fiscal year, because I don't know if all of you are familiar, but we run on a fiscal year basis, which is July 1 to June 30th. So we are preparing for the July 1 of 25 budget date. And that's why we start about this time. And we wanted to just to let you know what we're considering moving forward, what kind of direction that we've given staff to move forward on, and what our timeline is to bring that to you and the board moving forward. Next slide. Eddie talked a little bit about the strategic plan, and we know for the people that were here, there was a lot of work that went into it over a long period of time.
But the basis for our budget document is our strategic plan. So we want to take what is in the strategic plan. We look at the first year. There's an appendix to the strategic plan that has kind of a 5-year layout of what we hope to do. And we look at that first year in that plan and say, what did we have planned in 26? And how do we make sure that we can move those strategies and actions into reality so that we can accomplish the things that we say we're going to do? Next slide. So in the strategic plan, we have goals, and also known as our pillars for the people who have seen our smart house. The 4 goals are ridership, pathway, extensions, and freight. And then our overarching goals for ridership is to increase to 5,000 plus per day. For pathway is to design and construct the planned pathway, maintain the existing pathway, and enhance customer experience. I think someone talked about lighting. That would be an example of enhancing the customer experience. Extensions, complete the system extensions to Hillsburg and Cloverdale. And then for freight, to ensure long-term sustainability of our freight operations. So that is really where we want to then deploy strategies and actions so that we can move forward and get these things accomplished. Next. So under each of these strategy areas in the strategic plan, there are action items. And so rather than go through and list all of those, I put the page numbers. So if you're just dying to go to the strategic plan and look them up, but it was also for our employees. So when they're going and preparing their budgets, we like them to go and look at what's included in that plan, what action items we talked about at the time, and really structure their operational and capital requests around that. So again, I'm not going to go through these, but just as an example in ridership, clean, safe, reliable, improve first last miles that we talked about today, work with our local partners to improve transit connections. So all of the things that we've talked about today are included, as you can see, in some of the ridership strategies. Next. Continued, we have things like maintaining our system in good repair. A lot of people think that our system's new, so why do we have to spend the money on that? But you will not believe how quickly a new system can need repair and ongoing repair, so that we don't get in a situation where some of these larger legacy systems are, where they're so far behind that it's almost impossible to get caught up, or the money is so astronomical that you need to be able to do it. So we don't want to get there. So our goal is to maintain a system in good repair. Some of the other things are supporting locally sponsored TODs, support workforce development. I think that was mentioned. So a lot of those are the things in ridership. Next. Under pathways, we want to construct the segments that haven't been constructed. We want to maintain what we have. We want to ensure adequate wayfinding. We just did a project this last year around wayfinding, support local efforts for connections, and again, maintain the pathway that we have, and make sure that we have a plan to deal with the segments that have not been addressed already through our pathway plan. Next. Under extensions, we've also talked a lot about that today, opening to Windsor and then Healdsburg and then ultimately Cloverdale. We may have to increase our rail fleet to do that. We want to plan for growth in our system, those type of things. And then under the next one, which is freight, really trying to close that funding gap is one of our main goals. And that leads to the sustainability issue, looking at market advantages of shipping by rail. Also, a big item for us is ensuring state of good repair there. And then making sure that we're meeting all of the CARB requirements for freight locomotives. Next. So those things, again, we ask our folks to look at when they're preparing their budget. And it's that time that we start looking at those things and asking them to kind of construct their operating and their capital budgets that we then bring together. And then we identify our revenues and our expenditures through the budgeting process. Next. So the first thing we talk a little bit about here is our assumptions around revenues. Our largest funding source is the sales tax. We talked a lot about that a little while ago. That is expiring in fiscal year 29. The other thing that you may have read in the papers lately and stuff is that we're seeing sales tax not be as robust as what it was in the last few years coming out of the pandemic. It was growing exponentially at double digits. It's slowed down. It's flat and slightly probably going to be lower in the next few years. So taking that in consideration moving forward. We receive federal formula, what we call federal formula funds. So they're funds that we received based on operating as a commuter rail system. And those are the funding sources 5307 and 5337. We call them that because that is the number in the regulation and the statute. So it's just how they're referred to. And those federal funding sources require a match. So, and what that means is we pay for a portion of it, and then the federal dollars make up the other portion. And these two funding sources, it's 80% federal and 20% local match. So that helps our dollars go further by using these federal funds. We are expecting that state funds will continue. So we get different kinds of state funding sources that allow us to keep our system going through operations and also state of good repair. And those come from the state. And so we're making the assumption those are going to continue. And then on the fare side, we are making some assumptions, and also this will lead to recommendations to the board. And right now, our recommendations and assumptions in this, as we move towards this draft budget, is that the Bay Pass, which is for the college students, will either continue or expand. That we will continue the low income program that we participate in, the START program that's called. And also we will continue the youth and seniors free through the next fiscal year 26. Those are some pretty large assumptions there, but that's what we'd like to continue with. On the expenditure side, we wanted to know that salaries and benefits make up the highest percentage of costs in the operating budget. So when you look at our operating budget, about 75% of it is salaries and benefits. So if you want to make real changes to reducing operating costs, it's usually because done through the salaries or the benefits piece of it. We have to take in consideration, up here it says CBAs, those are collective bargaining agreements. So we negotiate with our various unions. And based on those, we have some in place that will go through this year, and we know what those percentages are. And we have others that are being renegotiated in fiscal year 26. So we may not know at the time we do the budget, but we'll have to make some assumptions there. And then we have the people that are not covered by the collective bargaining units, and we call those non-unionized employees. And we also have to make some assumptions about whether or not we'll be recommending a cost of living or some type of increase there. One of the very large areas that we're seeing significant increases are, and maybe you've seen them in your lives too, is on the medical side. Just as an example, from fiscal year 24 to 25, our medical costs for our employees on our side has increased 30% in 1 year. Prior to that, we were actually seeing the increases be more steady and smoothed out a little. They were, more even. And then just recently, between 24 and 25, we saw this huge increase. My expectation is the increase going forward won't be quite this large, but it will continue to increase at a higher rate than what we've seen. Also, we have areas of overall services and supplies. So these are the things that we need just to continue to operate, to pay our bills. And some of the areas, so overall, we increased that by 3%. But there are specific things within that operations and services that don't necessarily follow that nice little 3%, rate of inflation numbers. And one of those is insurance. The type of insurance that we buy for rail liability insurance has been increasing at a has been increasing at a rate of between 15 and 20%. We can only buy that insurance outside of the country. There are two providers, one in London and one in the Bahamas. All commuter rail has to buy from these same groups. And so it becomes problematic as far as not having a lot of control over the cost of insurance. The other one is fuel. I just gave you an example here of fuel, retail gasoline prices over the last 20 plus years. And you can see that it's all over the place, right? And so it makes it very difficult, especially when you're an organization like us who purchases a lot of fuel, and how to estimate what that's going to cost. And then, one of the big things right now is all this discussion around tariffs and what that will mean to us, not only for our operational, but definitely for our construction costs. And even if it doesn't impact the exact products that we use, we tend to see when there is a lot of conversation in the market about this, that people tend to raise prices regardless of whether or not it was that specific item. So the expectation is things that we use in our business will go up in price over the next year. The other thing we have is debt service. This is our debt payments and principal and interest. And that debt will be paid off in fiscal year 29. But right now our payments are around $16 to $17 million a year. And then we try to contribute every year. We don't try, but we do contribute every year to reserves, operating, capital, and pension reserves. So next. On the capital side, you notice we have those pillars or those strategies and goals around pathways and extensions. So right now, we have plans to continue to design and build our pathways. And a few concerns we have going into fiscal year 26 is we had several pathways planned, but some of our funding sources, our grant funding sources, are those that are being examined at the federal level to determine whether or not they will be released, even though they've been granted. So we do have concerns about what that means to our program, our construction program in fiscal year 26. We were planning on doing those projects. Are we going to get the money to actually do them? And then on the extension side, we have an RFP that's, is it out now? It's out. So an RFP that's out for our design and ultimate construction of Windsor to Hillsburg. So that's pretty exciting for us. But again, some of the money that we're expecting in there is waiting on the feds to take action on it and release it to us. So again, some concerns about the funding piece of that. On state of good repair, this is keeping our stuff that we have operating to the standards that it needs to be. We have bridges, safety and security equipment, maintenance of way, which are things like the signals that you can see here, and our vehicle maintenance areas. And then next, the calendar. So today we are meeting with you just to have a conversation and show you where we're headed and the things that we take into consideration when we look at the budget. On May 7th, which may seem a ways off, but for us is a very short period of time. That only gives us 1 month to put the whole budget together. And that presentation will be in a board workshop on May 7th. That is not a normal meeting date, so just keep that in mind. It's a Wednesday, but it's not a normal meeting date for the board. On May 9th, the draft will be released to the public for public comment. On the 21st, the board of directors will be presented that document. And then on the 28th, we'll be back here presenting to you to get your input that will then take forward to the board for adoption then on June 18th. And last year, the input that this committee gave us was in two forms. One is we got feedback at the time because we had the document out in advance to you, so you could give us feedback at that time. And then Danny then presented at the actual board meeting and gave feedback there. So we had two ways of giving feedback. We always like at that 28th meeting, if you can give us your feedback then, because then it can actually get incorporated in the document. By the time the board sees it on the 18th, it's a little late then. So with that, we'd be glad to take any questions that you may have of our process.
One thing before we get started that I just wanted to point out is I think you can see this, but the strategic plan that this committee helped put together is what's driving the budget. And so it really kind of all makes sense, is that we're putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak. We got the strategic plan. Now it's about building the budget to be able to execute what's in that strategic plan.
I'm going to call on Kevin first and then Anthony.
Thank you, Heather, for that great presentation. What are your assumptions in terms of federal dollars coming in this next year?
So we have assumed that we would continue to get our, what we call formula money. So that 5307 that we use for operations, and the 5337, which we use for some capital and operating projects to do state of good repair. We expect those to be around the same level that we've been seeing them this current fiscal year. What I'm concerned about is the money that we have, that we were expecting and had already expected to be able to move forward with for the capital projects. So we have several grants out there that we had been granted for pathways to do construction on them. And then we have the money that was granted to us by the Federal Railroad Administration for the systems work on Healdsburg, the Windsor to Healdsburg project. That's quite a large dollar amount, and that we have not seen any movement on either. So we do have some concerns with those funding sources and what it means. And right now, there's not a lot of clarity that because one day it moves forward and the next day it does not. And the latest we've received is that they're being reviewed. And after they've been reviewed, we'll be notified of whether we will get the funding or not.
Heather, when I saw your slide regarding revenues, what is your current fare box recovery ratio like?
So, and if you're talking about fare box recovery as it relates to the operations costs divided by our fare revenue, it's about 6%.
I have a question on how you, with all the challenges that you're expecting, you only put a 3% increase on that. That seems kind of moderate. Is that in fact,
Yeah,
where do you want to go with that?
Yeah, so I think we'll see more. I mean, that's what, for planning purposes, we estimate that going out at about a 3% rate. We'll see more as we start getting people's information back from our managers. Those are due on Friday, this Friday. We have had our two meetings with them, all of the managers, and I think we're seeing that in some places it will be a little bit over that, but in other places it might be a little under that, and overall it might come close to balancing out. I do think that we will, we have some tough decisions to make, like everybody is going to make, about what we pursue and what things we'll have to, wait for another day to fund. Things that we, for example, we're a very rapidly growing organization. By the time we get to Cloverdale, we will have more than doubled our system. That takes manpower, right? People forget that we're doing that, but we're trying to put a hold on hiring any new positions because we want to try to keep, our operating costs down. And as I said, that our salaries and benefits are one of the most significant percentages of our total budget. So that's hard, right? Because people are working really hard to get these projects out, to get the work done, to maintain our vehicles. And we keep adding service and we keep adding requirements. And so that's just an example of one of those trade-offs that we have to do, and we have to look in the future. We do a plan that goes out all the way 50 years just to see what these decisions that we make today do on the future. Just to to try to gauge how that fits into the overall picture. Now, if I could predict the, out to 2050, I'd be rich and I wouldn't probably be here, but we at least try to do it to get a sense, because when he says, can we do this? I go, well, we can today, but what are you going to cut tomorrow? Right. So that's the kind of trade-off discussions that we have. So that's a long way of saying 3% is what we're aiming for. We may or may not make that number.
And I know you do a good job of assessing what's doable now so that we can move it to the budget over here, or what didn't get done from here, so you can move it into the budget for there. But the Fed funds is worrisome. So anyway, thank you very much. Do we have any more questions on her presentation? Oh, please, Tom.
So fuel is a big part of the expense, right? Is there a way to buy fuel futures to level out that?
That doesn't always work.
Yes.
I'll let you speak to that, but I'll just tell you, I've
The
looked
same
at that a
opinion
lot.
on it.
Yeah.
So, so at my last job, we bought fuel futures. We had a bus of a 1,000 bus fleet at my last job I worked out. And so you can imagine the amount of fuel we consumed. The rest of our systems were electric, so it was only the bus side. We also had storage tanks, which we do not have here. We fuel up every night here. So a couple of things with futures is, one, when I examined them at my last job over a 20-year period of time, it would have been the same whether we bought the futures or we did not buy the futures. It works out over a period of time to be about the same. And you can kind of see that chart that I had. If you kind of draw a line through the middle of it, the ups and downs, or there is a middle. And so that's what you see. The problem we have here with futures, and the problem, I'll give you the example of my last job that we had, is storage, right? We have no way to store it. And so usually when you're buying futures, you're also agreeing to a certain amount of fuel to be purchased and a certain delivery schedules, et cetera. And here we don't have the ability to store. What happened at my last job during the pandemic was all of a sudden overnight, we stopped running service, right? And yet we had fuel futures, which required us to purchase a certain amount of fuel. And we only had so much storage. So I had fuel coming in and nowhere to put it. And so when we asked them to not deliver it, they agreed, but then they still charged me for all this fuel that we were not using. So I think you just have to really be careful about the futures. In our current investment policy, it's not encouraged to do futures. And so right now, based on our circumstances, I think it's better because we don't have storage and other things, that we just continue to plan for those ups and downs, and then it evens out over time.
Thank you.
Sorry, that was a long way of saying I don't support fuel futures.
Yeah. That's fine. The only thing I haven't seen and that I would like to see, maybe the next one, is we haven't talked about the house.
Yes.
And we haven't seen a physical picture of the house. I don't know if that's something that you could
Sorry, I took
bring
the
up right
house
now.
out.
But since we have the new people,
I
I can wait
know.
till next time, but I think that's a really important.
The house will be in the budget document, so I will make sure it's in the next
Okay.
presentation.
It just, it really sort of outlines why we're here and what we're doing.
Yep.
So if there's no more questions, I do have one request of staff, and that's to thank the previous people who are no longer with us. Well, they're here, but they're not serving on the COC. Sherry Adams, Lucy Dilworth, Zachary Kushel, and Connor McKay. And if we could just send them a little thank you, something, or if you want me to do it and send it through you. I just thought coming from SMART, it would be more better. So if there's nothing else, the next meeting in the Citizens Oversight Committee is May 28th, 2025, 1:30 at this address. And can I get a motion to adjourn? Okay. I'm just going to go ahead and adjourn us. Thank you very much, and welcome to the new people serving with us this next couple of years. Appreciate it.
Thank you.